check. So can everybody see my screen? Okay, someone is in here. Right, great. So yeah, welcome to today's session. Dieter already said what is today the file documentation, statistics, and GDPR. You will get a really broad overview, and if you have special questions, just ask. I'm not sure if everybody of you knows me, so just a brief introduction. I'm a social worker and I have worked as a debt counselor for 7 years, and then I went into research. My PhD thesis was about over-indebtedness among young adults, and now I'm the managing director of a research institute in Hamburg. We are a non-profit research institute that has been conducting research for over 30 years on behalf of various public clients, and we are focusing primarily on financially vulnerable consumers, especially the self-employed and over-indebted ones. So at first, a short introduction. What is the use and benefit of client statistics? So like you know, over-indebtedness is a complex issue that requires in-depth analysis in order to understand and assess its impact on society, on individuals, and to take appropriate countermeasures. And quantitative methods offer important support for this. So a quantitative databases for research on private over-indebtedness can be established through the use of surveys and registers. All of you will know things like that in your own country or on European level. And the database obtained, sorry? It's not about me on? A database obtained in this way makes it possible both to estimate the extent of an existing over-indebtedness risk and to uncover those factors that are related both to the risk of over-indebtedness. So the recording of over-indebtedness figures depends first of all on what is understood by over-indebtedness. And I think all of you will have a different definition of what is over-indebtedness. So there are common problems. Currently, there's neither a uniform definition of over-indebtedness in Europe, nor there's any harmonizations of the statistics used. So one problem here is the different factual availability of the data required for the chosen definition of the term. So if any one of you have a different definition of what is over-indebtedness, every one of you will see different statistics or will see the problem a little bit different. So first of all, you have to be aware that there are different models of over-indebtedness. And first of all, an objective quantitative model that defines over-indebtedness as unsustainable debt in the sense of being unable to service or repay the debt. Second one, a subjective model that classifies as over-indebted all those who, in their own estimation, are unable to repay their debts. And the third one, an administrative model, in which cases of non-payment of outstanding debts that have been officially registered are recorded as over-indebtedness. So that's the so-called disclosed over-indebtedness. The measurement approaches of over-indebtedness presented above use different definitions of over-indebtedness and focus on different stages of the path to the factor over-indebtedness. They also depend on the availability of data. And a distinction can be made above all between the legal procedures through which persons are recorded by the authorities with regard to their payment appears, and the sociological approach in which a potential over-indebtedness situation emerges off the basis of detailed information. So just a quick definition of all of them. The first one, the objective one that I mentioned, focuses primarily on the difference between income and expenditure. The repayment of outstanding liabilities requires the availability of a sufficient liquidity. So a main source of liquidity is the monthly income after deduction of taxes and social security contributions, as well as living expenses. In addition, there's also savings and insurance policies that can be drawn or liquidated as needed. So a person is considered over-indebted if the monetary value of all assets is less than the monetary value of all debts. So this definition is modeled on companies which are legally forced to file for insolvency if their net assets are negative. Then we have the subjective model. So this means in this definition, you are over-indebted according to your own assessment if you are saying you're unable to repay your debts. Since there are no clear and reliable values for recording relative over-indebtedness and the risk of over-indebtedness, subjective information on repayment problems is helpful, which focuses on people's self-assessments of the over-indebtedness situation. So for this purpose, the European Population Survey, EU-SILC, European Union Statistics on Income and Living Conditions, lends itself to indicating whether a household was behind on the following items in the last 12 months to the lack of money: mortgage or rent payments, utility bills, and installment payments for hire purchase or other loans. So the EU-SILC data is really helpful for all of us to see between the country how the database is. The advantage of these quantitative data sources is also that it allows an EU-wide representation of the over-indebtedness situation as well as a country-specific comparison on. And self-assessment of one's over-indebtedness situation is also part of the German over-indebtedness statistics of the Federal Statistical Office. These statistics are based on an annual voluntary survey of debt counseling centers. And since participation in the survey varies greatly from region to region, an attempt is made to improve the representativeness of the survey means by corrective weighting. So if you see a statistic, always check how many of the whole counseling centers are participating and in which region of the country. However, the number of people seeking advice does not correspond to the number of over-indebted people in Germany, because not all over-indebted people turn to debt counseling centers, and not all people seeking advice from debt counseling centers are over-indebted. So it's a little bit complicated. And then we have this third model, the administrative model. So the administrative model is independent of the respondent's information behavior. It is just based on the official data. In this definition of over-indebtedness, all cases of non-payment of outstanding debts that have been officially registered are recorded as over-indebtedness. So this information is the byproduct of the official or legal functions and includes all cases in which the non-payment of debts was officially registered or declared in court. This includes, for example, notifications such as a statement of assets or insolvency proceedings. Since the administrative model is tied to a specific legal system, the differences in the data collected on this basis between the federal states in Germany, but also between countries in general, are very large. So the model includes cases where the person files for insolvency or defaults on the debts, but not cases where this is a serious disruption of the usual consumption. So therefore, this information is more likely to represent a subset of those who are over-indebted or at risk of over-indebtedness. So as you can see, none of these three models will give you a completely overview of all over-indebted people. And I think in your countries may it be the same problem. You always have to check what is the underlying definition of over-indebted to work with the statistics and to see what definition is the best to use for your case. Statistics and social work is an underrated topic, but it's really important to understand how are statistics made and how you can use them, for example, for funding or to explain the problem of your clients to the media or politics or something like that. So it's really important that social workers or people working with over-indebted people understand statistical concepts, just to have a broad overview, and if you have a special problem, you can ask an expert, but just to have an overview. So it is a key to understand the research and to make evidence-based decisions in your own practice. And understanding statistics can help you identify the best interventions for your clients. With new tools, you can monitor and evaluate your clients or your team's progress. You can spot biased systems masked by complex models and the appearance of scientific neutrality. So for social workers, statistics are not just mathematics, they're an important training tool to see how is your work done, or where are problems that maybe you overlooked the last weeks. So, but there are a few things that you always have to check. At first, definitions are sometimes confused or misinterpreted. You just see the 3 definitions that I explained to you. It's not always that easy to see what is the underlying definitions. And it's really important to check that before. So the definitions of over-indebtedness just show it, for example, depending on which definition you choose, you suddenly have a completely different group of people, both in terms of their problems, but also their numbers. If you only count over-indebted people who have already been dealt with authorities, a very large group of over-indebted people is overlooked. It is important to always keep that in mind. When you see a figure or table, ask how the data is made up and what is the definition of it. Then the second one, ask yourself, am I looking at the whole picture or just a narrowed section? So is there missing data overlooked or something like that? For example, are you only looking at 1 month, or do you have an overview about the last 5 years, for example? The third one, am I using a meaningful benchmark in the interpretation? And the last one, a statistical correlation does not have to be a causation. So just see what we find to that. So that's in Germany, we have a famous example. So in Germany, people always saying the stork brings the children. And in the countryside, there are more storks and usually a higher birth rate. But that doesn't mean that the stork brings the children. So, and think examples like that you always can find in each of our things. You have to look is there a statistical correlation, or is it just things that are on purpose together? Our institute, for example, has developed Kavin, a software that manages all processes related to advice seekers. You can save the data of those who are seeking advice, but also write letters, record creditor data, or create statistics. So you can create a meaningful anonymized evaluation of the counseling cases. You can illustrate the counseling effort and counseling services and back them up with empirical data. And once a year, we are doing a big report from the data of participating organizations. And once a year, this year was about 80 counseling centers who gave the data to our institute, and we are doing a big report about 100 sites, and are showing what are the current problems of the people, how is this matching to the whole future of the completely field of debt counseling, and where are the problems or where are solutions. So to give a broader overview, and the media is always seeing it and doing some reports about it, and it's a good possibility to show people who are not common to this field, to show what are the problems and why are people over indebted, what are their problems, and how can we help them out of these problems. And in the data of this IFF over indebtedness report, the case numbers for the individual statistics show that information is provided less frequently that is irrelevant for counseling, but which is crucial for identifying the need for action and the part of policymakers or the providers of debt counseling services. So you can see what are the current problems and what, for example, are the special needs of people being very young. So here you can see the interface of our Kavin program. So Kavin supports you in different things, but you can also do the statistics. So there are just some test cases that are no real names. And just to show you how it works, genau, Dieter asked me to show you some practical examples from Germany so that you have some examples how we made statistics and reports in Germany. So this is, for example, Kavin and the interface, like you can see. Now it's possible to get different reports because we have about, I think, 400 debt counseling centers who are using Kavin. And most of them have different things to keep in mind. So their funding depends on different things, and some of them need a very large report. Some of them just need some short numbers. So it's really important that they have the possibility to get that really fast, so that they have more time for doing counseling and not have weeks to count things or to do some tables and figures. And debt counseling, like you all know, is repeatedly forced to justify itself due to tight funding requirements. For example, answer questions, recording their effectiveness, and the sensible use of resources. So in case of efficiency. And it is important to be able to tell the donor what problems the person seeking advice has. Then, for example, the offer can be adapted to them. An example, the statistics show that suddenly is that there are a lot of clients who are working the whole day, so they need, for example, more appointments in the evening. So it's important that you have the number of clients to say to your funding, okay, we need more money, we need an advisor for the evening hour, so that the people, when they are ready from work, can come to us and have their counseling appointments. And here you can see some examples from the Kavin software. Here's just an overview. It's in German, but I think it's clear here, for example, is like what is, do they working, do they not working, what is their exactly background. And here I have a table about causes of over-indebtedness, because in order to understand the different problems and find solutions, it is necessary to have a precise knowledge of the circumstances of those one seeking advice. And statistics like this help you to understand what are the problems in general and give you an overview about the living situation. Because in Germany, sometimes when you are telling someone you work as a debt counselor, the common thing you hear is, or the people have problems with buying too much and don't have an overview. But most of the people didn't know that most of the people seeking advice have problems with their work. So they lost their job or are not able to work more hours. And in Germany, it's 20% are over indebtedness because of losing their job, for example. And statistics like that help to show that people and getting away from just looking at one person, so that you can have a broader overview about all of them. And it's good to know most of the people being over-indebted are over-indebtedness because of things that they don't have an impact on. For example, being ill or separation, or your wife or husband died or something like that. And if you have a bigger overview of that, there is a lot more of things that you can explain about the living situations of the people. This growth shows how it's important to be able to say what is the exactly group that comes to you in a debt counseling center. And in this figure, you see that, for example, people with more than 3 kids are very in risk to be over indebted. And if you have kids or living alone with one kid, it's a really big problem in Germany. And always they're always more represented in debt counseling as they are represented in the outside that counseling, and it's better if you can see this on a chart to say, okay, look, our common problem are people with families who are over indebted or in risk of over indebtedness, and this is the biggest group who have problems, and we need to make special offers to them. Here you can see the causes of over indebtedness among under people being really young, under 25. And the main cause is unemployment and not excessive consumption, as is assumed in the media in Germany. And that follows only from second place. So statistics also help to separate perceptions from facts, to say no. Also young people have the biggest problem that they are losing their jobs or can't find something to work on, and not consumption like everyone else is saying. And the last thing that you have to keep in mind are GDPR aspects. So really important is anonymized data. So no individual information about factual or personal circumstances. One always speaks of anonymous data when the stored information can no longer be related to one person. So, however, this does not make the recorded data any less meaningful. It's just important that no one sees at the end who was the first person. So even better is pseudonymized data. Then all information can be used for statistical evaluation. However, the data sets are stored in such a way that there is no longer any connection to the person concerned. So it is therefore not possible to find out which data belong to the client. And in Germany, and I think in your countries too, data protection has become an even more sensitive issue in the recent years. Counseling centers should make sensitive information, in particular anonymous, for statistical evaluation. So in principle, there's nothing against evaluating personal information, but it should be absolutely impossible to draw conclusions about the person. And anonymizing data makes it possible to realize a statistical evaluation that complies with data protection and to avoid data protection violations. So like you can see, it was a really rush about the whole topic, and I think there will be enough time to discuss some points. I hand over to Dieter.
Thank you very much, Sally, for your concise presentation. The collection of